Hello, and welcome to Marathon Swim Stories, where we explore the human side of the superhuman feats of endurance swimmers and those who support them. I'm marathon swimmer and coach Shannon Keegan. Today we found out more about how Stephen Rouch, who was the subject of my first deep dive marathon swim stories episode back in January, gained confidence to go for a 50-mile double crossing of Lake Magog in 2019. If you haven't heard it, be sure to listen in or watch the retelling of that big swim. A childhood swimmer who was more familiar with running marathons later in life, Stephen came on the marathon swimming scene in 2014 and quickly caught the bug. Just a few years later, he ventured off to Arizona in late April and not only completed the 4-day, 40-plus mile Scar Swim Challenge, he won the belt buckle, thus fueling the most prolific year efforts that earned him the Marathon Swimming Federation BARA Award. Get all the details in this episode. Enjoy. I said, tell me your story. What's your story, Stephen?
I'm glad that Mark Spratt's on the call today because he's definitely part of it. Back in 2000 and I started swimming when I was a kid and swam competitively, high school age group through, and then a couple of years in college. Then I took the big hiatus where I didn't swim again until 2013. I mean, I went to a few pools and practices in the meantime, but it wasn't until I moved to Indianapolis in 2013 did I actually get started swimming. And that's where I met Mark Spratt in the locker room one day. He was talking about swimming around Manhattan or a marathon or something, and I was intrigued.
What intrigued you about it?
I'd already been running marathons at that point in my life, so it's kind of a natural, interesting idea at that point. I'd only started swimming in July of 2013, which was kind of a funny year of lost opportunities because that was the year that Indianapolis hosted Spring Nationals for USMS. And I joined 2 months after that, so I missed out on that until we hosted it again 5 years later. Little did I know events like Big Shoulders had already sold out. So by the time I learned about it and half the team was up in Chicago swimming that, I was just at the natatorium on a rare weekend practice at the for that time. But by then I was at least in the loop. So in 2014, I knew where to be on February 1st at midnight, where I signed up for Swim the Suck, which was this was the first marathon swim I actually did.
Okay.
And similarly, on March 1st, I was able to get into Big Shoulders as well. Now that thing sells out today, it's a lot harder to get into than I think someone like Mark, who would know when you registered and you had more than a day at least.
So what was it like that year getting ready for that first Swim the Suck?
Well, I mean, I was stubborn. I didn't know any better. I mean, I still don't, but I don't know if I think I got in the open water maybe once or twice beforehand.
Okay.
I just stubbornly clung to swimming in the pool every day. Kind of followed the master's workouts that we had and swam them hard. I certainly had a whole host of concerns since I had zero experience. Big Shoulders ended up being my warm-up for Swim the Suck, and a 5K versus a 10 mile is a big jump. And Big Shoulders was it was a cold year. It was about 62 degrees, which now I'd consider about perfect. But
right, the time, yeah.
I was 20 pounds lighter then, and hypothermic for quite a while afterwards, and had all sorts of issues with the cold that day that I didn't realize were the cold, and they made me really concerned for my 10 mile in Tennessee, because my hips had frozen, and I just didn't know, like, was it because I'm so used to doing a flip turn, that is that why my hips froze? So I had all these theories that at least turned out to be a little inaccurate. And that same year, we had a teammate here in Indianapolis who passed away during an open water swim in the summer that I
Oh my
had
gosh.
missed. And, in the back of my mind, I didn't know any better, and was just scared, honestly.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
like, it could happen to anybody, because he was a young man. So that was just a sad year. But so
Was it, was it, I guess I'm curious. So it was a young guy. What was the cause of death?
I think it was a heart failure of some sort.
Okay. Okay. So I
Uh,
hear about that sometimes.
yeah, he was in his mid-40s, and just instantaneous during a swim. He was just going all out, and
Yeah.
that's my style. But big shoulders in 2013, I didn't, or 2014, I didn't go all out. I just kind of did an everyday pace, and just try. I didn't want to race my heart yet. I didn't have that confidence.
Right.
Anyway, this is marathon swimming.
Well, how did the 5K go? It's a stepping stone.
It was fine. I mean, I
Right.
finished.
You finished, other than the pains and not knowing what was going on.
I finished, and a lot of my friends got a good laugh at how cold I was and how long it took me to warm up. I remember going home I stayed at my parents, because it was halfway between Indy and Chicago, and I stayed there that night, and I just remember being cold, for even under blankets, and that weird sweaty cold where you're like cold but not cold and hot. People that have been cold probably know this feeling, and the rest of you, it's interesting. It's worth trying. But yeah, so Swim the Suck was just about a month later. My dad had never sat in a kayak before. I'd never, I swam like an ocean mile in college, and that was, other than big shoulder, that was my experience, and a few triathlons younger. But anyone who pays attention to triathlons knows those distances are quite a bit shorter than swims we tend to do.
Right.
Anyway, so we and Swim the Suck that year, all my Indy friends were excited, and they'd done it before, and none of them did it in 2014.
Oh no, they didn't get in.
Yeah, it sold out in like 20 minutes at midnight, back in the day when she opened it at midnight.
Wow.
So a lot of the people that were thinking about registering didn't get in. A couple other people that normally did it were, I think that was the year that Victoria Ryan and Jim Barber were in Hawaii doing their crossing, and Victoria's usually a regular there. So, not that I knew her then yet.
But you said, so there was the 1 mile in college, and then the 5K at Big Shoulders, but you didn't do any other open water swimming because the scare with.
No, I wasn't scared. It was just I'm scared. I was and still am a little scared of the ocean, mostly from jellyfish and wars. But I'm getting over that one slowly. But yeah, so we get to Tennessee. My dad and I drive down with a borrowed kayak strapped to the roof of the car, paranoid that someone's going to steal the kayak, and we stay at a hotel, and people aren't that interested in a cheap kayak on the car, fortunately. We show up, we do all the things. Kent Nicholas was there. He was given he always gives away a SCAR entry there, and back then at least he was there in person, which was fun, and listened to his speech about SCAR. I was like, oh, well, that's an interesting thing. Maybe I'll do that some year. But Swim the Suck started. Water was warm, probably mid-70s. It was, at least for the time, pretty much a perfect conditions for me. Sorry, the cat's knocking things over. Now he's visiting the video. So we just took off, and I didn't know any better, so I just swam as hard as I could for 3.5 hours, and we just picked people off for 3.5 hours, and I ended up 5th overall. Got this fun little gray thing, a little sculpture. Kayak gives out a sculpture there.
Cool.
It's like an ocean wave, and that was the start. But 2015 would prove to be a hiatus of sorts. I ended up doing Swim to the Moon that year, which is a 10K up in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So I did do a marathon, but I was actually training for an Ironman that year.
Oh, okay.
My one and done.
We'll go back to Swim the Suck. So you got 5th. What did it feel like? 10 miles. That's a long way. How did your dad do in the kayak all that time?
Afterwards.
Okay.
Which was a surprise, but like at the time, it truly felt like, oh, I could never go longer than that. That's crazy. I was still in a marathon runner's mindset of like 3 or 4 hours is, but I'm pretty sure on Monday morning or evening, whatever time I was swimming then, I rolled into practice, like got in the water and swam, and it was fine.
Yeah.
That was the first sign that there were bigger things to come.
Right. Okay. So then now we're in 2015, Ironman and a 10K.
Yeah, it was a quiet year. I think there was a 2 mile in Indy I did in June, and then there was the August I did the 10K, and then there was also I did a half and a full Ironman that year, and that was kind of my big events. I was also doing a lot of pool swimming, which I've anytime there'd be a local or local-ish meet, I would usually hit those up. Always looking to do the 500, the 1,000, the mile, the 200 fly, the IMs, the short stuff.
Did you still feel like that was short stuff? So you've done a 10K at this point. Did you the pool competitions?
It's definitely funny how it's turned into the short stuff now.
Yeah.
But even then, I'd do a 200, but anything shorter than 200 wasn't worth
the bang for your buck, right?
Yeah, I'm not a sprinter. So.
Right. Okay, so 2016. What's in 2016?
Well, 2015, November 1st.
Oh, okay.
SCAR.
Yes, sign up.
SCAR entry opens up. So Mark Spratt, of course, had already done it. He was definitely my guide for many years. And so he told me everything I needed to do to get registered, and I'm biting my nails. Will I get in? And it wasn't long before you get the notification that you're in with a bill.
Right.
That's how you know you're in SCAR.
Yeah.
A 4-digit bill. You pay that bill and you're in. So again, I still knew nothing. I just continued to swim 5, 6, 7 days a week at the pool. Mark was always telling me I needed to get in the open water, but it's March. It's February. How do you get in the open water in February?
What was Mark doing? Was he getting in the open water in February?
Probably not.
Okay.
He had at least had experience.
Yeah.
He'd done SCAR before,
Yeah.
The Mark Spratt training plan of you swim an event and then you're ready for the next one.
Right.
So he was on that schedule by then. So I just tried to increase my volume and work really on intensity over distance because, at least at the time I was really constrained by the pool schedule of my swim club, which we actually had a lot of swimming, but I also had a job, and that was 8 to 5. So it's not like I could do doubles and triples, even though the practice time was available.
Right.
But Mark gave me all the details, and my father and I, we booked plane tickets. We booked all the hotels as Mark explained, and we hopped on a plane to Arizona.
in
Uh,
April? Was it April at that point, or was he doing
it
it
was
in May?
late. It was late April.
April.
Um, and yeah, if anybody hasn't done Scar and isn't interested in it, I can't recommend it enough. It's a lot of fun, and it'll challenge you in different ways.
It's a good social event too.
Yeah.
Good place to meet people.
Yeah, I've met so many people through swimming. It's ridiculous. But it was a great event. Again, I at that point I had one marathon under my belt.
And you're going into Saguaros, what, 9 miles the first day?
Yeah, a real 9 miles, not
Oh,
a
not
assist.
current assisted, right?
Um, yeah, so I still know any better. I didn't have a lot of experience. My dad at least had been in a kayak once.
Right.
He was ready, though. The cheap kayak we used at Swim the Suck, I think, was probably an upgrade over the one that he ended up in at Scar. I think Kent calls them floating pigs. So they're not the best kayaks, but he made it work. So yeah, we just swam the first day. I took off like I was going to win the thing, but I wasn't. There were a couple guys there faster than me that day, and so I ended up third for the day. But I was happy with that. Happy where I was. The first day though was my first real shock into really cold water. I think the dam was about 50 degrees that morning.
Oh, wow.
It was quite a rush, but it didn't last, and the cold didn't really bother me either at that point. So
Okay. Had you done any acclimatization?
no,
No.
I might have been jumping in my uncle's pond I think that might have been the year I jumped in for 25 yards
So you've done some, though, but that count compared to Big Shoulders. I mean, in the
Yeah,
experience there, you had at least gotten in some cold water.
but there had been a lot of whining about that. The second day was canyon, a little colder, but I just kept my head down and swam, had a great time.
Refresh my memory, canyon. So you do 9 miles, and then the next one's
like 9.5.
Okay.
Or 8.5. I don't know. The first 2 days are very similar in length.
Right. And then going into the big old 17, 18 mile Apache, how are you feeling about that? That's a big one. That's a huge jump.
Well, I'm sure that people had told me that it wasn't really 17 miles, but until you've actually been there and done it, you don't believe that it's less than 17 miles. It's 14 miles. But like I had tendonitis after day 2 and an elbow, but I hit the water on day 3 at Apache. Just felt amazing. Just took off. Was right on the tail of John Humenick. He was the current leader at that point, but he ended up getting cold. And it's kind of funny to think back, but it was I seized the day that day. Jamie Prophet had been in second place, and I ended up ahead of him, and I just swam out of my mind. Just was like, I felt like I was climbing over the water that day, and it was not a nice day. Conditions were rough. They weren't legendary rough, but they were rough. But I never noticed it. And we just kept going, and eventually we were there. It was, my dad was like, I think I see the dam, but he didn't want to tell me because we thought we had 3 miles to go.
Right.
But there it was, and we finished.
How did your dad do with all that time in the kayak?
It hurts his back, hurts my back. I think it's a Rouch problem. It hurts our backs. But it was great. It was just such a relief to finish it. I think only there were a lot of pools that day. I think that was only like 11 or 12 people finished that day. Yeah, Mark's agreeing with me. And I didn't know that. It was one of those cases where my naivety was helped. Like we were way out in front. We couldn't see anyone behind us. There's no one in front of us. So I just swam. I didn't know people were struggling. I didn't know that people were getting pulled. I didn't know the water was cold. I was just an idiot swimming. And I got to the end, and then I learned all this stuff and was like, oh, well, maybe.
If you had known it was an option, you might have tried it, but since you didn't know it was an option.
Yeah, like the fact that I didn't know that people were struggling and like, oh God, what's going on? Like, I never noticed it. And being blind to that was a real positive for that day.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that brought us into day 4, and it was just just over a 10K, and starts at dark, and just took a nice easy clip and just cruised into the finish. It was just a oh no, that was the year of the storm. There was a storm that rolled in.
Oh.
Day 4,
Had you done night swimming before that?
I had not.
Okay.
But the storm rolled in. It wasn't dark yet, but the storm rolled in, waves, worried about my dad capsizing and the kayak.
Mm-hmm.
But it was gone as quickly as it came, and it was calm
Wow.
waters the rest of the way, and we just got to the dam, and that was it. Got a fun little belt buckle. That was the first year.
Nice.
Can you see? Oh yeah, there it is. And you know, it's such a Scar's got an interesting finish because it's at night and people come in at different times, and people have hotels and planes to catch, and
Mm-hmm.
so everyone kind of trickles out pretty quickly. And you know, the next day we were trickling out as well. We were driving back to Phoenix, hopping on an airplane, and there you had it.
That's a great, though, that experience at SCAR. Doing the back-to-back-to-back miles is a huge confidence booster, I'd say. What do you think?
It was a realization that I could do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I came back in 2017. I still didn't believe that I could do it.
That was a fluke.
That was a fluke.
But you did 40 some odd miles in 4 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did not trust myself.
Okay.
But yeah, that's just a day swim nowadays for me.
Right. So did you do anything else in 2016?
I did the Kingdom swim.
Mm-hmm.
My first trip to Vermont. And my other regular kayaker, my cousin's husband Jimmy, which anyone who saw my other video with Shannon, he was one of my kayakers there as well. He's been my regular kayaker in Vermont, and my dad ended up there too, just because of family reasons, and ended up paddling for Mark Spratt that day. So the only time he's ever done that, Mark can be a challenge. Everybody knows. Giving me a face. But no, that was a good swim. And
did you do the 10 mile? Or did they have the border buster?
I did the 10 mile because I was all USMS. I got to do the national championship.
Right.
Should have done the 15 mile. I would have been a real challenge. I already done 10 mile swims. But I would go back and do it again in 2017. 2016 was just mostly those two events. I know I went back to Swim to the Moon that year in Michigan, Big Shoulders, but those were the big guys that year. But the next year, 2017 was really the year that I kind of went nuts. The Dave Barra, anything worth doing is overdoing. Borrowed from someone else, I think. But so 2017 started a lot like 2016.
On November 1st.
Did I do Swim the Suck in 2016? I think I did. I did Swim the Suck in 2016, but that's kind of more just like the resolution of the season. You get to come party with all your friends.
Right. Yeah. It's a fun one.
2017 was a lot like 2016 and a lot different. I signed up for SCAR again. I signed up for I signed up for SCAR. I signed up for Big Shoulders. I signed up for Swim the Suck. But I also heard about 8 Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
And I still didn't have any confidence. So I signed up for stages 2 and 3. Well, I had some confidence, but I signed up for financial reasons for only 2 days.
Right, right.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
Sport is not cheap, but you
Let's go
know,
back. Let's backpedal just a little bit. So go back
sure.
to 2016 because that was a big year. So what did you learn about yourself that year in 2016 when you were just, I mean, you said you keep saying you didn't know better, but you had to have been learning something about yourself through these swims.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was like,
Feed wise, training wise, what did you decide to change going into that next year doing some of the same kind of things?
not much has changed, honestly.
Okay.
But part of it is that I'm kind of like a student of the sport. Mark Spratt and I would spend every day after practice when he would show up, we would spend 10 minutes in the locker room, fully dressed, just talking about marathon swimming, what we're going to do differently, what we were going to do, what we're going to sign up for, plans, what we're going to do at SCAR, what we're going to do at Swim the Sock, what we're going to do everywhere, So it was just always this constant back and forth between us of what's next.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Nutrition wise, did you learn anything about nutrition? Were you eating anything on these swims?
My nutrition, I was recommended Carbo Pro. I was using Kool-Aid as my flavoring at that time, and it was only in 2017 did I realize that a full packet of Kool-Aid in a bottle was a little too citric-y for me. So I used half a packet after that, and have kind of switched flavoring to Tang or to chicken broth on things. But the core of my knowledge really, Mark helped me develop, and I really just, it worked. It worked right out of the gate.
Okay, so you just scale that knowledge to your distance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've been lucky. I've never really had a whole lot of negative challenges with my feeds. I had some heartburn in my last big swim, but other than that, it's been pretty mild.
Okay. Kitty wants to be in.
Does.
Okay, so trainings, whatever, but Mark is dictating everything. You're doing what Mark does going into 2017.
I mean, I really was a little copycat for a couple of years.
Okay.
But 2017 was the year I went nuts, and I mean, again, he told me about 8 bridges.
Which 2 stages did you do?
Well, I did all 7.
Oh, okay. I thought you said financial reasons.
But there's a little bit of story there. So
okay, all right.
I did all 7, and as the race got closer, it was in early May. I got a text from Rondi and Dave and Alex that said, "Hey, we've got some slots opening up in stages 1, 4, and 5. Are you interested?" And I was only doing 2 and 3 because they're in Poughkeepsie. I went to the college in Poughkeepsie, so it was familiar.
Right.
But I was like, I thought about it, called my dad and was like, "What do you think?" Because he was going to kayak for me, and like, okay. And so then I was in 5 stages. And then eventually, like, talking to Alex and stuff, it was like, could I do all 7? Can you get me in, like, even though I'm late? And he was like, let me see. And then he did. And I was in all 7. Spent my swimming budget already.
Yeah.
And I still had a bunch of swims to do in 2017.
So when does 8 Bridges run again? What time of year? June.
Usually,
okay.
Mine was the middle of June that year.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2017 started with SCAR. It was an eventful one. That was the year that only 4 people finished all 4 stages. The conditions that were wild in 2016 were bunny rabbits compared to
tame. Yeah. Were you one of the 4?
I was one of the 4. Yeah. Yeah. That was the first year that my dad really, he took the brunt of it. He was dumped in the water at
Wow.
SCAR. a couple times, and finally they got him on the boat. And I was lucky. The only reason I got to finish, I didn't have a kayaker for the last couple hours, but I was in the lead, and so I was lucky that the boat followed me to the finish. So I had support for those last 2 hours. A lot of other swimmers didn't get that opportunity, and I fully acknowledge that. That was my dad's first time getting wet, but not his last. I went to Chattanooga in June of that year. Did the there's a swim fest, a 1 mile, a 2 mile, and a 9 mile. Swam like a 10K because of the current. That was fun, but that was just a warm up for 8 bridges. I was, you put the number 120 miles down. That's pretty daunting. When we show up, we had a friend's borrowed kayak. It was not a big enough kayak. It was wobbly. My dad's a big guy. Then he held it together for 4 hours or so, but then he fell in the water.
Oh man!
He hurt his back. They swapped him out for a bigger red kayak that was a little more balanced, and we finished the day. But we were able to talk to the race directors, and they were able to find us alternate kayaks for the rest of the week.
Okay.
And John Humanic did 3 days for me, which was really fun. And I had a handful of other really good kayakers the other 3 days.
Did you learn anything from having a different kayaker than your dad?
Sometimes it's okay he doesn't have to do everything for me. I think he'd agree with me there. I think I'm pretty easy in the kayak. My kayakers might disagree. My crew might disagree. But it's definitely I can always be better with my crew instructions. I can always be better with my expectations. So it's still just a learning experience. When I'm with my dad, we're really in sync because we've done it since the start. So we're kind of all on the same page. There's not really a lot of questions. It's just go.
He knows your personality, whatever, all that stuff. So yeah, that's a benefit.
Yeah. With other people, but these guys were essentially pros, so they knew what they were doing. We just zipped down the Hudson River until we got back to the ocean. It was just a fun swim. It was like the second scar gave me confidence, and it was hard, but every day took an hour or two to get warmed up, but not like cold warmed up, but like muscles warmed up.
Right, exactly.
But once I was there, I was fine. Part of me wondered, maybe I should do a 20-day swim or a 50-day swim. I go every day for 6 hours, maybe.
It's a big confidence boost. What's that?
I wouldn't be afraid of trying it now. Okay. It's more just finding the water and the money and the time off. That's
right.
But it was a lot of fun. And then the remainder of the season, I went back up to Vermont, had to do the 15-miler, or the 25K, the 10 miles getting short for me.
Right.
Did kind of the other closers of the season. I might have been the year Big Shoulders was canceled, but I was there. And then Swim the Suck, also fun, which I may or may not have been. No, I was there that year.
They're all blending together.
4 times in 8 years, so it's like I was kind of every other year.
Right.
But it wasn't every other year. But 2018 was kind of starting to change things up a little bit.
Are you still running at this point, or is that gone back burner?
There's they get a 4 series running medals at the marathon here in Indianapolis. So my dad and I were doing it every year to get the complete thing. And so we were doing that. So yeah, there's always a marathon or two in a year of running.
Wow.
But it was no longer it was just something I did, not something I was really training for.
Mhm.
But 2018 was finally a start to branch out. I wanted to start giving back, so I kayaked for Jamie Ann Rennick for her scar, or at least 3 days. I still wanted to do Apache again because I liked the challenge, but that was the easy year where
The tailwind.
we had the tailwind. Yeah. I think I swam 2.5 hours faster that year than the year before. So
Wow. What
big
was
difference.
it like being in the transitioning to the kayak after just mainly being a swimmer for so long?
I would much rather swim than kayak.
Yeah.
Kayaking hurts me. I'm not good at it. I don't have experience. It was similarly to my father. It was about the first. I'd been in a kayak a few months before, but that was essentially the first time I'd actually kayaked. A real 30 minutes in a kayak is not the same as 4 hours in a kayak.
Right. Right.
Or 8 hours in a. I wasn't in for Apache, so I got to dodge that one.
Yeah.
But it would have been an easy day. So it was just fun. It was just fun going back, meeting all your old friends again, and just kind of getting to see the other side of it. I did End Wet that year, which is 36 miles in North Dakota. Which became my new longest swim ever at over 10 hours.
It's duration wise, even. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I flew back to New York to do a stage of 8 bridges, swam stage 2 again, which was the Poughkeepsie stage, which was again just for fun. And then I ended up paddling for Mark Spratt when he did his stage 5 that year.
Oh, cool.
So that was fun. He ended up having shoulder pain and had to pull early, but I was stubborn and was like, I am going to finish. So I kayaked all the way to the Tappan Zee Bridge that day, and my back wishes that maybe I hadn't. I remember passing one of his friends in the kayak, and she yelled at me and said, "Where's Mark?" Then I had to tell the truth. I think another person that we also passed was like, "Oh my God, Mark's having quite a kick." Not realizing that
It's just you.
trying to catch up with Terry on the kayak and have somebody to guide me to the finish. And that year I also went to Vermont, did the Kingdom Week, which was kind of the final puzzle piece for really doing crazy long stuff. I did the Double Massawippi, which was 18 miles in Canada, and I finished that swim with lots in the tank.
Okay.
And I'd already been contemplating doing a single Memphrey, but by then I was hearing about all the crazy stuff that Sarah Thomas had done, and it was just like, oh, maybe I should. I think I'm trying to think if I met her at that point yet or not. But either I met her soon, and it was just like, yeah, I think I can do the double, and you get.
So that was in 17.
You save a little money by per mile.
Right. So that was 17 that you decided I think I'll be doubling, maybe whatever. You're starting to think.
Yes, 17 was confidence and yeah, I can do anything. And 18 was trying to spread out, do some other events that I hadn't done. Finally getting off the Mark Spratt schedule.
Make your own. Okay, yeah, 18's a breakout year.
He did. At the same time I was getting to know my friend Victoria Ryan. Our first introductions were, she was drafting off me and touching my feet. Now, swim to the moon. I don't care if you're going to draft off me.
Don't touch my feet. Yeah. Nobody likes to have their feet touched. Well, maybe there's somebody that does, but I'm not one of them.
We've worked that out since then, and we became pretty consistent training partners since then. But yeah, in 2018, I did the Kingdom Week, and that's just a party. That one's just fun, and it was just great time, and I think I took some of the suck off that year, and but I was ready to sign back up for 2019. But by 2018, I sent Phil my check, and for double Memphrey, and my whole mentality had shifted. It was listening to people that had done the really long stuff, getting advice from more people than just Mark at this point. I was talking to Sarah Thomas and pretty much anyone that would listen to me at that point. And instead of just like, I'm going to swim and I'm going to do whatever, I'm going to swim, and I'm training for double Memphrey. And I've kept track of every yard that I've done since I've come back to swimming. And I was doing my first 2 years at SCAR, I was doing 25,000 yard weeks. And in 2017, I was starting to pick up and at least dipping my toes into 30,000 weeks on the non-event weeks. 8 bridges will throw your numbers off. But by late 2018 and 2019, I was really, I was starting to go out and do long swims on the weekend of 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, swimming 10, 15,000 yards in the pool on a Sunday. I finally had the networking and friend connections. I knew where and how to go do these things in Indianapolis. And so 2019 was a season of, I did a fair number of events, but just they're kind of background noise for the double Memphrey. I went to SCAR again and paddled the whole thing because I was like, well, I can't skimp out on Apache. I got to paddle that one too. And fortunately, we had nice weather again, so that was great.
Nice.
Went back to 8 bridges and paddled 4 days for Mary Stella, and decided to swim the 5th day because she added the 5th day too. So I was like, well, might as well. An extra day. And then just continued to train through the summer. Flew to Colorado. Got to swim with Sarah Thomas for a long weekend over the 4th of July. Flew out to Catalina. Did crewed for Jamie Ann for her Catalina crossing. And that was July. That was the end of July. And then it was like, oh, this is real. So we regrouped. We drove out to Pennsylvania, met up with Mary. My mom and dad drove out themselves to Vermont. We settled in for a nice 2-week visit to Vermont. We did all of Kingdom Week again, and I took it easy. Only did a single Massawhippy because I was tapering.
Right.
And nervous, and definitely the confidence wasn't there yet. In theory, I knew I could do it, but it's easy to think those things. It's another thing to actually do it.
So that rule of thumb of you can do as much in a week in a single day, even though you'd done 8 bridges, so you can do 100 some odd miles in a week. That's not giving you the confidence to
80 miles. 8 bridges is 80 miles.
Okay. Still, same difference. You're only talking 50 here.
Yeah. It eventually gets to a point where it's hard to swim that far in a day.
Yep, that's true.
You complete into the 2nd day, which is what happened for me. But we talked for an hour and a half about my Memphrey swim. It was, uneventful, at least for me. There were a few exciting blips for the crew. steering
Right.
the boat into the rocks, getting stuff caught in the motors, probably not wearing enough warm clothing.
Right, yeah. So if you want to catch the deep dive, it's from back in January that we've got that one all recorded. Let's talk a little bit about, well, first of all, I was trying to remember, what year did I meet you at the cliff in Colorado? What year was that?
Oh, that was 2018. I got on the
You
rock
got the rock? Show the rock.
here.
That's where I met Stephen, at the Cliff Ultra, and Sarah Thomas and Kyle's event. And what year was that?
That was 2018. That was
2018.
right before I had decided on my double Memfrey.
Okay.
It was August of 2018. It was before the Kingdom Week that I would then go and do the double Massawippi and get big ideas. And I remember unloading the car at the cliff at 8,000 feet elevation and being winded. And I thought I was in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, being horizontal didn't bother me. I did not have that oxygen deprivation when I was swimming. And that was a fun swim. It was just...
Tell people about it, just in case they haven't heard of
yeah,
it.
so the cliff is it's a 1.5 mile loop in Lake Wellington up in Colorado at 8,000 feet elevation, where the water in the summertime gets to the mid 60s. In the mid 60s at 8,000 feet feels like the low 60s. But I'm used to that by now. And so you do a lap, you have to pick up a token to prove that you did the distance. And you get out of the water. And then the rest of that, you have to do that every hour. When you get out of the water, the rest of the hour is yours. You can take a nap, you can eat, you can go swim some more if you want. Whatever you want to do, you can do. But you got to get back in the top of the hour. And if you don't, well, you're done. And so we did that. The day started off beautiful. I'd get out, I'd reapply sunscreen, I'd eat a little bit, I'd rest, and I'd do it again. And the advantage there is definitely for me, because I was one of the faster swimmers. So I'd get out and I'd had 15, 20 minutes to relax. The one key I think that I had that a fair amount of swimmers didn't do that day was I took my suit off.
Yeah, I didn't learn that one.
I brought 30 suits because I thought I could go 30 hours. And I dry suit every time, because then you're not getting cold. And, just because it was sunny at noon and sunny at 3, it was not sunny at 5. It was raining by then and getting colder, and the sun was going down. And
right.
People were dropping like flies. We started at, I think it was 6 a.m. that year, and 6:02. And we were down to a handful of people by 12 hours. 12 hours was a real breaking point for a lot of people. But Shannon was still in it, a couple other people. But then the rain happened. And I know Mark Johnston, he didn't have any crew.
Oh, that's right.
And like his stuff got wet and it demoralized him and he dropped out. And Batches finally got cold, so he dropped out. And but not Shannon. We were the last two.
Sarah Thomas was whispering in my ear.
and Sarah Thomas whispered in her ear that, Stephen said he's good to go all 72 hours.
Oh no, she just was just the confidence boosting for me. She's like, you're keeping the same pace. Like you could keep doing, if you've held the same pace the whole entire day. So the only thing I needed to do was just keep doing that.
I remember, I know I demoralized at least somebody with just the attitude of like, I came to do all 36 hours or whatever the max hours were going to be for the event. And do I think I could have done it? I don't know. It would have been hard. But I couldn't tell anybody.
Right.
That I wasn't going to do that. So I didn't. I'd get in my chair after my swim. I'd get warm. I was being catered to and eaten, and it was time to go swim again. I was cold. I was miserable, but I wasn't telling anybody. People thought I was like in this Zen state when I was really just like, just hold it together. and again, luck has always always had a lot of luck with swimming, and Cliff was no exception. Shannon had a bad run.
I
You
missed
got
the
lost,
buoy.
right?
Yeah.
You showed up at 57, 58 minutes in, and you were going to have to go do it again right then.
Right.
And you were done. And I'd had 20 minutes of rest. And then I learned you were done. And I was like, okay. And I did the loop. And on one hand, like there's certainly regret afterwards. Like, oh, I could have kept going. I should have gone 18 hours. I should have gone to midnight.
Oh, yeah. Because you had this
And
bigger thing in mind. Yeah.
part of me was like, everyone was tired.
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone to have to suffer for me. Like, I'm not important enough that we need to have 3 or 4 people out there watching me do loops until the sun rises.
Mm.
So I've let it go. Walked away. And
I could have gone again. I should have gone again. We could have kept them all up. That's why she had all those volunteers out there.
I'm ready to go. I mean, it's like I said, it was just the way the cards fell. It was over at 17 instead of over at 24, 22. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
It was fun. It was
definitely
fun to swim.
What swim are you most proud of? We'll just kind of wrap it up with a couple more questions and then break.
Yeah. So, there's a pile of them. Like, obviously my double Menfrey was a big deal. But my swim the suck in 2019 was also a big deal. It was, I'd had such a fun season. I'd also done the triple Hawaiian crossings in 2018, so that was fun. But 2019, just after all I crewed, 8 bridges, I crewed Pittsburgh, I crewed Scar, I did my 50 miles, I did a couple other swims that year that were just training swims. And it was just going to swim the suck, kind of was the last swim of the season. Having recovered from my 50-mile swim, and just took off and was able to win it. And that was like, it's like, then the pandemic happened, and like that's the way to end.
Yeah.
And the last thing I've done was the winter swim was with a real event, was the winter swim in 2020, and then the pandemic happened, and that's where we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say doing all of 8 bridges, doing all of Scar, doing all of my double Menfrey, my 6 crossing of Morse from last fall. They're all ones that always going to remember, as well as my first swim the suck and my most recent swim the suck. Those are kind of like because like the swim the suck in 2019 was just a celebration of just like everything I'd done, and just getting to see all my friends, and it was just a great time.
Mm-hmm. What have you learned about yourself from marathon swimming?
Even though I said after the 50 miler I wasn't ever going to do that again, I'm probably going to do it again. Which I'm sure my mom, who's probably listening, is like, oh God. So what I'm going to do next, I don't know. No real plans. I've got a list of 15 swims or so that are interesting to me, but it's picking which and when makes sense. And but I'm definitely going to keep doing something. I do like it. I like crewing. One day I hope to crew some more in a boat. It's a lot less painful for me rather than on a kayak.
Right. Very cool. What marathon swimmers inspired you?
Obviously Mark Spratt is one. Victoria, Mary, Sarah Thomas. Those are probably big ones for me. These days I continue to encourage my kayaker Jimmy to swim longer and longer. We've got him up to a 10K. I'm still pushing to get him into the 10 mile, but haven't gotten him bite off that one yet. But no, I mean, it's just like, it's been such a good time to just see, it's being able to see the community on Facebook and whatnot. You can kind of see what everyone's doing. And I know we're all stealing ideas from each other, because we all end up in the same bodies of water from time to time.
Yep. Yep, that's true. Awesome. Thank you for sharing your story, Stephen. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Very cool. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Do you want to take marathon swim stories with you? Subscribe on your favorite podcast provider. Want to connect with like-minded limit pushers? Join us for Marathon Swim Stories live on Tuesdays at 5:30 a.m. Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, 13:30 GMT. Thanks for watching.